Welcome back to the channel. Whenever summer comes around, I like to go camping, especially to places that offer a bunch of amenities like a pool, barbecue place, fireplace, and local trails that you can hike during the day. And something everybody should have whenever they go camping? A power station. So let's talk a bit more about the VTOMAN FlashSpeed Pro 3600 and power stations in general. These are a great idea for a bunch of reasons. If you have an RV, a big power station like the FlashSpeed Pro 3600 can provide plenty of power for all your appliances, and the best part, it can be charged from solar panels that you install on your camper van. Of course, there is also the option to charge it from a wall outlet, and this model specifically charges super fast. The input power can go up to 2000 watts under optimal conditions, and that means you can fully charge this unit in under 2 hours. If you choose to use the solar panels, the maximum input power is 800 watts, which is plenty, and it also takes a maximum input voltage of 80 volts, really opening up the options in terms of solar panels that you can use to charge this. Of course, it is also extremely helpful when you go camping with a tent, providing the quality of life you wouldn't have otherwise, especially if the place doesn't offer a plug for your spot. And now we get to the sponsor part of this video. ScoutLight wanted me to showcase to you their new 4-in-1 magnetic flashlight. Although super small, this produces 300 lumens, way more than your phone's integrated flashlight. It features 14 hours of runtime in eco mode, weighs only 40 grams, and produces an accurate 95 color reproduction index. This helps you when using it to complement other lights in photography or video work. There are so many use cases for this flashlight, especially because of the magnetic stand. You can use it clipped to a shirt, a cap, a jacket, to the edge of your tent, basically anything that's flat and thin enough. On top of that, it's also magnetic, so you can attach it to shelving units, your car if you happen to work on it, cabinets, anything metal basically. But with the stand, it also transforms into a desk light to assist you in video calls, when reading, and in other scenarios. Honestly, it's very versatile, and the small form factor makes it ideal for EDC use without having the bulk of ordinary flashlights. On top of all the features I mentioned already, it has 3 temperature settings: 2700 Kelvin, 4300 Kelvin, and 6500 Kelvin, adapting to every situation you might run into. This is a great little pocket light for bike riders as well, because you can have it clipped to the front and illuminate the road in front of you, or clip it to your back and use the red function to actually signal your position. I carried every day a bigger light from a competitor with very similar functions, and it came in clutch so many times, I was really happy I bought it. But I will now switch to the Sparko from ScoutLight, and I suggest you do the same. Using the code in the video description, you'll also get a nice discount, so don't miss out on that. Now back to the power station. Even if you don't own an RV or go camping, this style of power station can be super helpful around the house as well. Having such a huge capacity at 3096 watt-hours and extremely capable output at 3600 watts continuous or 7200 watt peak, you can confidently rely on it for jobs around the house or supporting your hobbies. I personally already used it to power my extraction vacuum and clean the seats and the rear bench of my car, in a place that had no wall socket. Isn't that amazing? Also, if you need to cut something, this has no problem powering an angle grinder, an electric chainsaw, a hobby table saw, so you start to really see how this would really prove its value. Another feature that is really smart is the UPS functionality. With its pure sine wave output, you can use this as an uninterruptible power supply if you live in an area with frequent power outages or unreliable voltage. So for example, keeping the FlashSpeed Pro 3600 plugged in and then plugging in your computer in that makes sure in case of a power outage you don't lose those valuable files you have been working on. The same can be said for a home server and so much more. Now it's time for a tour of the outside. As you can clearly see, on the back we have an extendable carrying handle, and that is super useful because this unit weighs 38 kilograms, which is relatively heavy. It would be pretty hard to carry otherwise. You'll see later it also features 2 big wheels to give it some ground clearance. Also on each side there are huge handles, so it can be confidently carried by 2 people. Right on the front, the VTOMAN logo is actually a button. And to the right of that we have an LED button that turns on the front lights. That can also flash red in an SOS pattern. Right underneath we have a display that right now says 99%, which is the charge level. It will also show you input wattage, output wattage, all the ports you have connected. And then moving on to the ports, this flap has a double hinge, so you can either use it like this once you have something plugged in to protect it from incoming droplets of water. Of course, don't use this in the rain. But because of the double hinge, you can also just leave it rested like this while you access all the ports. Speaking of which, on the left side we have the USB bank, starting with a USB-A at 18 watts power output, then USB-A at 12 watts output, and then two USB-Cs at 100 watts output each. These are super useful in case you want to charge a large power bank, a drone, a laptop, anything that's super power hungry really, this will have no problem powering it. As you can see, on top of each bank there is one button, and once you press it, it activates the output for the specific bank and also lights up these LEDs so you can tell that this is powered on. Moving on to the DC output, we have two barrel jacks with 12 volt 10 amp output each, and then two cigarette lighter sockets with 12 volt 10 amp output each. And finally, we get to the four wall sockets, each with pure sine wave output of 230 volts and a total across all of these of 3600 watts. Another super nice thing that's integrated in this power supply is something that I like to call a slow start. For example, if you plug in something that's super power hungry, that has a startup current way higher than the 3600 watts or 7200 peak that this power station can provide, it will actually ramp up the power delivery so it doesn't trip the overcurrent protection. In my case, I use a small but very powerful high pressure air compressor that usually requires 2.2 kilowatts to function, but the startup current is much higher than that. And instead, again, of tripping the overcurrent protection, the power station just slowly ramped up the power delivery, and then the compressor worked no problem. Now we can take a look at the left side of the power station. As I mentioned earlier, big wheels for good ground clearance. And also on this side, we have the input panel with this nice weatherproof flap. On the left, we have the AC input that you use to charge the power station from the wall, and it's marked with 230 volts at 50 Hz and 2200 watts maximum input. On the right side of that, we have the Anderson connector for solar panels, and that one is also marked 12 volts to 80 volts at 800 watts maximum. On the other side, we have the extra battery port, because you can actually purchase an additional battery for this from VTOMAN with the same capacity, basically doubling your capacity. We have an RV on and off button here, and then an RV plug that's also marked 12 volts at 25 amps. There are also two handy little storage compartments. One of them is on the back, where you can confidently store your charging adapter. And the last one is on top, with plenty of room to hold the manual and the cables. Speaking of which, this is everything that's included in the box: the manual, USB-A to USB-C cable, USB-C to USB-C cable, and the standard C13 power adapter to charge the unit. I really appreciate the top storage compartment, because if I want to have multiple cables available on hand, or just have a nice place to store batteries while they're charging off this, my phone or any other accessory, there is one place that I can always store them in, and I know they're always ready to go. So it's time to put it to the test. Let's load up all the USB ports that we can, and then we're also going to start plugging things into the wall outlets to see all the power that it can actually provide. First thing, USB-C straight into my laptop. Next, USB-A into this microphone pack right here. Then we're going to use the included USB-A to C cable to plug in my phone. And finally, using the included USB-C to USB-C cable, I'll plug in this fan, which is also a power bank. And with all these devices connected, we can see we have an output of 86 watts, and it just went up to 100 watts. Let's plug in some more. I will also plug in this camera battery charger and this camera monitor battery charger. And with this, we populated all the USB ports that are available on the power station, and we're looking around 100 watts of power output. Of course, my laptop is almost fully charged, so it's not drawing full power. You could easily see 100 watts just from that one single USB-C cable going to the laptop, as long as the device is actually requiring that power. Now let's move all the lights in the studio to the power station, and then we're also going to plug in some home appliances to it to see how it deals with that. Now with the studio lights plugged in, we see we have an output of around 400 watts, and one of the fans inside started to spin, which you won't even be able to hear. Of course, when the load increases, or the internal temperature rises, it has the smart fan feature, turning on the cooling fans when needed, and honestly, when you're using enough output for the fans to actually ramp up, you won't be able to hear them over the noise of the appliance you're actually using anyway. As mentioned before, this is powerful enough to run a compressor, an SDS drill, a regular microwave, or a popcorn machine. Speaking of which, let's bring in a microwave and plug it in. And now with the microwave plugged in, let's turn it on and see the power consumption. Right now it's running at 1000 watts and the power station is outputting 1900 watts. Check it out. The cooling fan on the left side also started spinning, but you can't really hear it over the sound of the microwave anyway. Some more use cases for the VTOMAN FlashSpeed 3600 would be, for example, when you go camping, this would do great to power your portable mini fridge, or if you want to get really fancy, why not even a projector for those movie nights. And again, in an emergency, you can use this to power your computer at home for hours, in case you need to get some work done. This is a great addition also for a video shooting team, in case they need to go on a remote location and they need to power a bunch of cameras, lights and everything. This would do great for that as well. As I said, with the option to add an additional battery, charging it from solar panels, and having all the output power you would ever need, this is a great choice for a power station. Withstanding all my testing and everything I threw at it, I only have praise for the VTOMAN FlashSpeed Pro 3600. Check it out at the link in the video description. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel for more tech videos like this one, and I'll see you next time.